In 7th century Northumbria, during a time when the Christian faith was still stabilizing its structure across the British Isles, a young monk named Chad was being formed far from political prominence. History remembers him not through self-promotion or ambition, but through the careful record of Saint Bede, who preserved the memory of a life governed by obedience rather than aspiration. Chad did not seek ecclesiastical power. When authority approached him, he hesitated. When correction confronted him, he submitted. When honor was offered, he lowered himself. In an age marked by disputes over calendar, jurisdiction, and canonical order, his defining trait was not controversy, but humility, so transparent that it disarmed conflict. His story unfolds across monasteries, missionary journeys, episcopal reform, and quiet prayer. Yet beneath each movement lies a single thread, a man who never considered himself worthy of office, and for that very reason was entrusted with it. In remembering Chad, we encounter a model of leadership formed not by dominance, but by surrender. Chad was born into a humble Northumbrian family near the beginning of the 7th century, in a region where Christianity was still consolidating its foundations. His brothers Cedd, Cynibil, and Celan also embraced monastic life, forming a rare household in which spiritual vocation shaped the destiny of every son. The brothers were trained under St. Aidan of Lindisfarne, whose missionary labors had brought renewed vitality to the English church. Aidan's influence was decisive. He formed his disciples not only through instruction, but through lived example, simplicity of life, pastoral zeal, and unwavering fidelity to prayer. Seeking deeper formation, Chad was sent to Ireland for advanced monastic training at Rathmosage under St. Egbert. There he absorbed the Celtic discipline of rigorous asceticism, scriptural meditation, and itinerant evangelization. The Irish monastic ethos would mark his character permanently. Upon returning to England, Chad collaborated closely with his brother Cedd, who had been appointed Bishop of London. Together they founded the Monastery of Lastingham in Yorkshire, establishing a center of prayer and missionary outreach in a land still marked by residual pagan customs. When Cedd died in 664, during a time of plague, Chad succeeded him as abbot. His leadership was not forceful or charismatic in outward display. Instead, it was steady and grounded, preserving the monastic order and ensuring that discipline and instruction continued without disruption. These formative years were decisive. Before ever being entrusted with episcopal authority, Chad had already learned obedience, endurance, and pastoral care within the monastery. His future role as bishop would rest upon foundations laid in silence and submission. After the death of Bishop Tudi, Wilfrid was chosen to assume the See of York and traveled to Gaul for consecration. His prolonged absence created instability within Northumbria. King Oswiu, unwilling to leave the episcopal seat vacant, sought a solution that would restore immediate pastoral leadership. Chad's reputation for humility and missionary diligence reached the king's ears. Though he had not sought advancement, he was elected Bishop of York. His consecration, however, was performed irregularly by Bishop Winnie and 2 British bishops not fully in canonical communion. Chad accepted the office reluctantly. He had never considered himself worthy of episcopal dignity and consented only out of obedience. Once installed, he carried out his duties with pastoral zeal, traveling long distances on foot to visit parishes and minister personally to his flock. When Wilfrid eventually returned and discovered that his see had been filled, he did not protest publicly, but withdrew in peace. The situation, however, required canonical clarification, and resolution would soon arrive from a higher authority. In 668, Theodore of Tarsus became Archbishop of Canterbury, and began reforming ecclesiastical order in England. Upon reviewing Chad's consecration, he determined that it had not followed proper canonical procedure, both in ritual form and in communion status. Summoned before Theodore, Chad responded with remarkable humility. Declaring that he had never deemed himself worthy of the episcopate, he willingly laid down the office. Struck by such submission, Theodore completed the consecration according to proper rite and retained Chad in episcopal ministry. In 669, King Wulfhere of Mercia requested a bishop for his kingdom, a vast territory where pagan traditions still remained deeply rooted. Theodore of Tarsus entrusted Chad with this demanding mission. Unlike York, Mercia was not a settled ecclesiastical center, but a frontier of evangelization. Chad accepted the appointment as Bishop of Mercia and relocated the episcopal seat to Lichfield, a place associated with earlier martyrdoms during the Diocletian persecution. By establishing his cathedral there, he linked his mission to the memory of those who had shed blood for Christ. True to his monastic formation, Chad insisted on traveling by foot throughout the extensive Mercian territory. He visited villages, farms, and remote settlements, preaching, baptizing, and instructing the faithful. His pastoral care was personal, direct, and physically demanding. Archbishop Theodore, concerned for his health and efficiency, urged him to ride a horse on long journeys. Chad resisted, fearing that such comfort might elevate him above the common people. According to Bede, Theodore himself lifted him onto the horse, compelling obedience through paternal insistence. Mercia's conversion was gradual. Chad's authority did not rest upon political force, but upon visible sanctity. His consistency in prayer, simplicity of life, and readiness to forgive disarmed hostility and strengthened fragile Christian communities. Through perseverance rather than spectacle, he transformed Mercia's spiritual landscape. Lichfield became not only an administrative center, but a beacon of missionary stability in a region once resistant to the gospel. Chad's sanctity became widely recognized throughout Mercia. It was said that he would withdraw to a small well near his dwelling to pray in solitude. Those nearby testified that when he was in deep contemplation, a light, like that of the sun, was seen shining from its depths. Reports of healing followed him. Illnesses were cured, and those troubled by demonic oppression found relief through his prayers. Yet his power did not manifest as display. His miracles were inseparable from humility, and forgiveness remained central to his ministry. A striking episode involved King Wulfhere's sons, who approached Chad seeking instruction about Christ. After their baptism, the king, enraged by their conversion, killed them. Overcome with remorse, he later sought Chad's forgiveness and received penance. Chad instructed the king to build churches and monasteries as repentance for his crime. Wulfhere obeyed and remained under Chad's spiritual guidance. Authority bowed before holiness, not by coercion, but by conscience awakened. Near the end of his life, a monk named Awini heard angelic singing descending toward Chad's residence. Summoned afterward, he learned that the angels had come to announce his impending departure. Chad revealed that in 7 days he would be called to heaven. On March 2, 672, after a brief illness, his soul was released from the prison house of the body, as Bede records. Immediately venerated as a saint, miracles continued at his relics. His life had begun in quiet obedience and ended in luminous peace. Saint Chad did not build his legacy through ambition, strategy, or self-assertion. He accepted correction without resistance, laid down office without protest, and embraced authority only as an act of obedience. In an age marked by ecclesiastical tension and political influence, his strength was found in submission. He walked when others rode, He yielded when others argued. He forgave when others condemned. His life reveals that true episcopal authority is not rooted in jurisdiction, but in sanctity. Leadership, in its highest form, is sustained by humility. In remembering Chad, Bishop of Lichfield, we are reminded that reform begins with obedience, mission begins with prayer, and glory follows those who seek neither power nor praise. Through his prayers, may we learn to lead by lowering ourselves before God.